introducing me. The topic of this talk is the topic of the whole track, is quite broad. And I think that anything could have fit this presentation. Just like the track is basically, because I was responsible for populating the track. No wonder I decided to discuss today the tools that you can find on open source, for when you would like to start your own project and to set it up correctly and to start working with it correctly and to do something useful for the whole community.
Меня зовут Андрей Kuleshov. Я сейчас работаю в Positive Technologies, руководителем разработки платформы данных. Но вообще, если меня...
My name is Andrey Kuleshov. I'm with Positive Technologies, and I am head of the data platform development. But in my experience, I did lots of different things. I worked with many different tools. I developed many tools. In the morning, you heard from Andrey Bochenko, who presented LVM, and my career started with his team at Intel, where I was doing some compiling. I never met Chris Lautner, but I know them by one handshake. I also worked in the industries. Deutsche Bank did developer services. I work in Positive Technologies right now, and
нашу платформу данных коммитят и закладывают данные большое количество людей.
Our platform is used by many different people. These people are developers. They need SDK. They need assistance with how the platform works, but it's all for the sake of developers. I do not have any social media that I can share. I do not have a Twitter account, but I think that every developer should be present on GitHub, and I am trying to be active there. And all the tools that you can find on GitHub, we will be talking today about the tools that you can find on GitHub. As a disclaimer, probably you should just sit back now and relax. All the presentations before me were rather hardcore. Did you enjoy them? Did you listen to all the speakers today? Please raise your hand if you did. Yeah, a couple of people. I hope you loved the presentations. And now I'm going to give you about an hour, maybe, to relax, to get some rest. In the last couple of years, this is how my GitHub has looked. I try to keep my personal life to a minimum. A couple of years ago, this is how it looked like. It was rather sad, because the first boxes there are obviously Saturdays, and the last ones are Sundays. So you see, it doesn't look good, didn't look good. This is the presentation that we made in 2022 with Dima Ivanov at Checkpoint, where I'm now speaking as a kind of a development communicator. This is what we also did back then. We discussed the pyramid of needs for Java developers, which tools, which instruments, what they are using. And all people from the from the Russian Java group, they are shown here, and you see how they evolved over that period of time. Now let's turn to specifics, less popular science, more practical stuff. Open source is the flagship tool of developers. Everything that's now in open source, any dev tool, first starts as an open source utility. It becomes a login. It makes people happy. It acquires followership. And this little character, do you know who this guy is? Very few people. It means that you're going to enjoy this talk. This is Octocat. This is the symbol of and the logo of GitHub. It's half octopus, half cat, whatever that means. And Octocat will be our assistant today. We'll dive into open source and dev tools together with Octocat. In fact, if you would go to GitHub right now, you will see that GitHub is the real leader of ideas in dev tooling. It's got everything. Inbuilt code IDE, code analyzers, AI, assistants, everything. So it's a case of a perfect dev tool. You can steal millions of ideas from GitHub. This link will take you to another GitHub resource. If you are in R&D and research, you should know GitHub Next. Do you know what GitHub Next is? Good. Then this is going to be useful to you. This is a collection of all ideas generated at GitHub so that later they can be implemented. But if you go there, what you will see is everything that starts with Copilot. Since 2023, in dev tooling, there isn't any development ideas apart from AI and assistants. I'm not happy about that because I personally have nothing to do with AI, LLMs, and all the things that are generated by neural networks. I don't even know what the proper name for this activity is. But the question that worried me was, is there anything else apart from these stupid assistants and all the IDEs? You find them today everywhere, right? And it feels like we are being pushed into these assistants. So I only found a couple of projects non-real AI related. One of them is real-time GitHub. It's like you work with Google Docs, right? And you share a drive, and several people use the same Google Doc. You get all the notifications automatically. There is a collaboration, bi-directional communication with the service. You are sending the data to the user. The user receives a notification, does something, you receive a notification. Collaborative workspaces is at GitHub there are workspaces, and it is also similar to the Google Doc ideology. An incremental code QL for people who are in security. QL is probably the most important thing that you should focus on. What's code QL? You will find out more during the presentation, but many of you must know that it's a system that allows you to make certain requests about your code at GitHub and say, find vulnerabilities. GitHub is currently running a big program, and actually they have a lot of activity around incrementality and correct building of graph databases, and CodeQL prioritizes that. You make a request, there is a change, and automatically CodeQL will upload that and integrate that into the project. My former team at Huawei made a presentation on CodeQL because we had a similar solution based on graph databases, CPG, code property graphs, and all of that. If you are curious, then this presentation is recorded. You can find it on YouTube. And especially if you are interested in code analysis, this will definitely be useful. In this chain, we must get from here via DevTools to open source, and this is what we need to do today. For that, we need to select the DevTools. This track is called Languages and Tools, but we haven't yet talked about languages and tools. About the selection of the languages. But in this talk, again, we will be discussing things that help us as developers develop things And those tools are associated with languages and build tools and everything. So, okay, to go back to the content. You are experienced people in development. Probably you start with IDE. Do you use Vim still? Lots of people. Lots of hands in the air. Too bad. And who codes in Vim? We still have people coding in Vim. Terrible. A normal IDE is not Vim, really. It's not where you edit the code and insert plugins. It's an ecosystem for the complete cycle of individual local development. You can argue with some of the words in this definition. Probably we'll come back to that later. But most of you, I'm sure, know which IDEs today are available on the market. There are two monopolists, JetBrains and Microsoft. Microsoft is now putting pressure on JetBrains. And Microsoft, on its Visual Studio website, they're saying that we support 8 main languages, the most popular ones. They work well, and everything is fine. And IntelliJ and JetBrains, they've always focused on Java, Kotlin, and probably some of you used PyChat for Python. Probably the market is progressing towards Java. Why? Because VS Code has terrible Java support. It doesn't have it, actually, and it will be difficult for them to capture that market. But these are local IDEs. What about the ecosystem? So you download an IDE, like Vim. You get an IDE and you can start editing the code, right? Wrong. There is also an ecosystem of plugins, and this is what makes an IDE not just a mere code handling environment, but an ecosystem. You wanted to work with databases, you do it out of IDE. You wanted to attach copilots, you do it out of IDE. You wanted to, I don't know, play games inside your IDE, you do that. This is how plugins work, and here are some cases that I was impressed with. Microsoft did a Copilot plugin for IDE, a funny thing. So they went into this market, and everybody said, like, oh, okay. And JetBrains is okay with Microsoft adding this plugin, enticing customers basically from the main vendor. Here is another plugin to support Java. It's terrible. It's got 100 and something ratings, and the rating is 3.5. And GPA Buddy is my favorite story. It happened last year or this year. People were developing a plugin for IDE, and at some point, JetBrains said, "Okay, this is a great thing. We would love to buy your plugin and make it part of the IDE supply." So this is how plugins work, and this is how they gather together into an ecosystem. I decided to go to the JetBrains marketplace to find out which plugins are most popular. One of the best sellers is coloring brackets. It's called the Rainbow Brackets. This is one of the plugins produced by, coded by people, not companies, because obviously among the very, very top sellers, you will find JetBrains corporate plugins, and then suddenly somewhere at the top, this plugin from individual developers. I said that there is individual development, there is local development. What does it mean? Is it true? And since I asked this question, obviously it's not true. IDE has Cloud IDE, and these monopolists develop Cloud IDE. JetBrains does Space, Code with Me. Space is just a Cloud IDE. Code with Me is for a platform where several developers can collaborate Do you do coupled programming, coding? Yes, then take a look at this plugin. Microsoft and VS Code, of course, there's code spaces, which will open the cloud VS Code out of spaces, and VS Code also runs nicely in the cloud. There's also dev containers. Again, if you haven't heard about them, it's a great thing to have. Your system and your infrastructure can be deployed in a container together with an IDE. If you want to play with a particular system with a particular property, you add it to the settings and it will work out of the box. What else? What else do we need to discuss? We need to talk about Git hosting. Git hosting is, well, today we can start with a definition. It's the platform to store source code, but in reality, this is not exactly true. Git hosting in practice is something else. It's an ecosystem, once again, that is required specifically to attract community and to ensure collaborative coding. It's not just storage for your code, but it's search and IDE and dev tools and ICI and everything. I'm talking about community because when all of your logic of your ecosystem is built on stars, repositories, and contributors, this spirit of competition at GitHub, for instance, is going wild. There are startups around it, like Open Source Heroes, for instance. It indexes all people and projects on GitHub to show, like, what here, me, it says here, top 3. Oh, can you hear me? That you are in the top 3 developers on GitHub. This may be good for your ego, but it doesn't look like community support. But GitHub goes beyond that. GitHub stars. Well, yesterday I met Nikita Sobolev. He is one of the Russians who was featured in this project. He is certainly a GitHub star, although he's no longer a star because of recent events, but here you can still see him featured as a GitHub star. There are some things that we are all familiar with: GitHub, GitLab, and Bitbucket. GitHub is the greatest monopoly in the market. It's this octocat that can do anything with code and share dev tools. Have you seen any of the logos seen on the right-hand slide? Probably you are all working for Sber, because you are developing Gitverse. Well, if the stand keeps standing despite the wind, then we can also talk about the rumors flying in the community. The rumor has it that Yandex also wants to get involved in this competition and produce its own Git storage. Well, that's at least what the rumor says. Git is a Chinese platform that came to the Russian market recently. They came with a localized product for the Russian market. Yonsu, I know this gentleman very well. He is the CEO of Git. In China, they have more than 10 million users, and I know they want to come here very much, and hopefully people here will appreciate the service because it's quite adequate. And finally, Microsoft is going to see some competition. So that's me, that's us. We selected an IDE, a local IDE. We commit our code to a hosting. And we get our first star. Someone gave us our first star. What next? The code is published. Maybe we need to initiate additional dev tools. Probably some of you will mention continuous integration that requires setting, but we can cross out this complex term and talk about build and validation. Over here, you see the State of Developers Ecosystem 2023 survey JetBrains carried out last year, and the survey demonstrated that the main tools are storage systems and continuous integration somewhere in the fourth place. There is management stuff in the second, third place, but we, the true hardcore developers, we are interested in the first and the fourth lines in this rating. And this again shows you that there is a lot of interest in CI systems at the moment. They all come together into comprehensive systems which enable developers work with code many different ways. As to do you use any of the following types of CI? Yes, of course, everybody said CI. Probably use Jenkins or GitLab CI or something else. Why I'm so sure? Because according to this survey, the first three positions are held by these three tools. Jenkins, GitHub Actions, and GitLab CI. I like GitHub Actions, personally. I love it. I adore it. And it's what I get there is a minimal package built for every PR, built for every commit to the main, and unit tests per build, and functional tests that run according to a schedule. GitHub Actions, have you ever seen it? Well, I'm surprised that not all hands shot into the air. I thought that that's what would happen. But that's how it looks like. The minimalistic UI, where you can see all the important bits of information. It works just like any other CI that you ever worked with. To set it up and to operate it, you need UML configs. For me, this is a dubious solution because I like normal and I prefer that format. I think that this is not the optimal choice to set up tools. But anyway, what you see in this config, everything is set up instantly and very easily. You say when CI should be triggered, which systems it should run on, macOS, for instance, and which steps are to be executed. And again, here we are reminded of our favorite plugins. IDE, the ecosystem revolves around plugins, and here it's the same. The system revolves around plugins. Setup Java plugin is an action plugin that will download Java of the correct version from the correct parameters from the correct distributor. I'm saying Zulu, and this is where I'm going to get it from. Java 8, yes, you may think it's funny, but that's what we have. Default actions that check out your project, for instance, and any other customized actions. For my static analyzer, there is an action plugin. It's called Benedkit, and the way to connect it, you just populate an action, you enter the name, and you get it. And this is how you customize your CI. These are the tools that are very popular within the CI environment. And suddenly here you see to-do in the code, and it automatically attaches issues to them, or open commit. When the era of AI was on us, it's this thing that takes your commit. If it's ugly and terrible, it will change the text, it will add new information and put it to work. Or metrics, you can measure or compute customized metrics, set them to CI, and be done with it. But people also made a game of snake on your contributions. So really, it's a snake for every CI. You refresh your profile, and this snake rolls on your front page. I don't know why it has 4,000 stars. I have no idea, but I downloaded it myself. So that's the basic package, which is then transformed into pleasant improvements. When I say pleasant improvements, I mean some bonuses, like automatic update of the code base. When in CI, for instance, you start modifying the code or something, or checking the code, static analysis, code analysis, dynamic analysis, anything, any kind of code test will be useful. Statistics for developers or project metrics, they're all useful things that we get out of CI. As someone who is with the code analysis industry, I started with code analysis in CI. And here you see three main subtopics that code analysis can perform. It can analyze your style, that you are following your code style or code guide, that you are following the patterns of design, like you build the architecture correctly, that the design of your application is correct, and that you are not making any awful mistakes, non-tolerable exceptions, or some arithmetic error. GitHub has incredible integration with Serif. At Positive Technologies Hack Days, many people should be aware of Serif. If you know about Serif, raise your hand. Not many. It means that the community of code analysis is weak. Serif, the way it works, it's an integration with GitHub. You make your commit, you get a report in the Serif format, which is automatically integrated directly into the GitHub pull request. In your pull request, you will see a report on where you have an error, what kind of error that is, the text of the error, etc. This is how it looks like. So this part of code is embeddable. You just take it and add it to your project, to their project, wherever. The only thing they need is to use CI in the correct way. Isn't it amazing? In the past, on GitHub, you see a feature, it's not embeddable, but here you can code everything yourself. You can write automatic commits. You've got a complete API that supports you, and API is almost native. You have to share the file in a special format, which is Serif, and this format will be uploaded by GitHub, and then it will be processed. The way it works, you collect your reports. You've got 50 reports from your static analyzer. You copy them into a folder, like here, step one. You put them together, filter them, find them, aggregate them. Then you've got a special action called upload Serif. It says here code QL. For those of you who are in security, it's a must-have. You must know what code QL is. This is one of the plugins that uploads a regular report into code QL. If there is a mistake there, you take these reports, you give them to GitHub, and you store artifacts somewhere just in case. If there is an investigation of a problem and you forget about it, but you need to keep the artifacts somewhere.
So you send it to GitHub and store it, artifact somewhere else. Serif, what does it stand for? It stands for Static Analysis Results Interchangeable Format, and this thing is required so that you can store your errors and the number of errors, such as the number of the line, the column, the text of the error, the ID of the rule that detected the error in the first place. Well, what else do we need in CI? Another important thing is the static analyzer and litter aggregators. The way they work is as follows. In open source, someone smart decided that he wanted to collect all the analyzers as a box solution. And he decided to get hundreds of stars for that. Super linter is one of the most popular CI tools, and Spotless is a more down-to-the-ground tool that worked with Java JVM. And if you do a Kotlin analyzer or a Java or a Scala analyzer, this is that would use. Now it aggregates more things, but it's still less popular, and there are lots of tools like that. What else do you get jointly with CI? Code coverage, you all know the test coverage, and you know that they need to be measured somehow, and it should be reflected. You have to punish people who reduce code coverage as pull request, and code of CodeCov does joint integration with GitHub. So you go to GitHub and you can use this integration. You will get a well, the bot would tell you, you reduced the coverage of your code. This is bad. Don't do this again. What else? License scanning. Right now it's quite fashionable, not for Russia, but anyway, to confirm licenses, and foreign companies fight over licenses all the time. And Vladimir, when he told you about the JDK sorting, I gave an example of Google suing Oracle over a license for very small sorting details. Tailor-made things such as auto refreshment of code, generation of documentation, external API services, and so on. As far as metrics are concerned, metrics are important, they are useful, and you can tailor-make them in GitHub. Please raise your hand if you can still hear me, because the storm is raging outside, it's raining. I cannot hear myself, so right. Let's move on to dev tools that are bots. There are lots of bots that you can use in pull requests so that they identify your dependencies. For instance, there is the depend bot, and and another one is Renovate. One of them was bought by GitHub, and it was aligned with CodeKL, and the way my favorite bot works, that's Renovate, it's as follows. Every Monday it sends pull requests to me, and the pull request refreshes my libraries, updates my libraries. It scans all the repositories and data storages. It sees that the library that I'm using in my project is now available in a higher version. Let's say it was 1.0, now it's 1.1. So he sends pull request to me, and I can schedule it. I can specify what packets I don't want to update. I can also tell him how to use patches from the updates. So you merge the pull request, and it's done automatically. Moreover, it is so smart that it learned to do micro patches. For instance, if you have a different API in your code, and this is extremely convenient. It doesn't need any AIs, assistants, or anything. As for Dependabot, it was integrated jointly with GitHub back in 2019. They merged 1 million updates pertaining to security vulnerabilities in the code. The way it works is as follows. Let's say you are the one, the character wearing the hat, and you want to update your library or add a new library so that it is reflected in the repository. The Dependabot scans the dependency tree of your project and tries to identify sub-dependencies which are vulnerable. It goes to the advisory database. This is the GitHub advisory database in this particular case, and for instance, log4j is a dependency with a vulnerability. And he says, sorry, you will not work, you cannot work with that, it needs to be deleted. And it creates a pull request which says, please update this version to this version, otherwise the security vulnerability risks are going to be high. What else does it do? It also creates graph dependencies. It updates dependencies through the pull request, and it notifies you of the vulnerabilities. And it's easy to set it up without any problems. And the nuance, it affects me personally for the very simple reason. The GitHub people, the GitHub guys, want to get an additional user or an additional contributor. This is what they live for. I don't see it in my library because Dependabot does not marry with Kotlin and other bots. So that's the main problem. I hope in the future they will rectify this thing, and I will not have to look for people who use my project. What are the advantages of Dependabot? Well, in GitHub there is there is the Dependabot and the security tags, and you can see what issues were included by the Dependabot on your platform. We already delivered the presentation on that in SafeCode, and been a member of the China Computing Federation linked with China OSV. These are vulnerabilities aggregated in China. I set up an advisory database for them. The Chinese are still using that, and if you're interested in learning more details, the article will be published soon, so stay tuned. As for the CodeKL, well, it's a very interesting example of integration of Microsoft and GitHub. This is a SQL-like DSL language that you can use to send your request.
Почему это делается? Ну вот, я как человек...
And, well, I create code analyzers. I know how difficult it is to customize rules to bypass your complicated graph, such as AST, CBG, DFG, property graph, control flow graph, and it's difficult to use all of them. While the proxy
Обработчики CBG,
and CBG developers considerably simplify that. All you need to do is use DSL to send you a request. It will be processed, and you'll get a result. And what we do here is, in the Java code, we find all the structures with try and finally, but no catch. In other words, you process the error, but you don't get a normal catch. And this is one of the rules that you can find in SQL. We dealt with bots, CI. Everyone told us that our code was bad. It was rewritten by someone else. Let's move to the users. Part 3 is about the end user. And to work with the end user, we need to record the results in the library. And the GitHub systems provide that. GitHub is very convenient because it offers packages. And if you use Java for programming, you know that all Java repositories are stored in Nexus Central. And GitHub features a very similar thing. It's an analog, it's an artifactory where you can upload your Java libraries. You can upload repositories for Gradle, Maven, and they work perfectly well. You can also upload Docker images, NPM libraries, almost anything that an ordinary developer needs if he programs on a hype language. It runs just like any manager would, and you hook up to the API as an external client, and it starts working. This is the way it looks. For instance, I upload my Maven libraries. It counts the number of downloads. And by the way, all of this looks way better than Nexus. And Maven, is a central. Maven Central is a default center for uploading dependencies. Therefore, very few people use it. And if you do, then you put more pressure on your library users. Docker images are stored in GitHub, and you have tags for every single image. You count the number of downloads, collaborators, and the meta information that you need will be provided to you.
Метрики.
As for metrics, this slide lists multiple metrics, and these are the things that are needed to attract users. This is all these shields. Well, it is considered that they will attract more users to your project because you know, they make your project more beautiful. But now we're going to just an opposite extreme when you have admiral, general, or an admiral or a general, and they have so many decorations that you know, it doesn't make any sense anymore. I personally use the following metrics: the number of lines of code. Sometimes it's useful to understand what's the size of the repository is. Hits of code. It's a very interesting metric that was invented by a very interesting person. If you click on the hyperlink, you'll know who he is. And this metric allows you to understand how often your code base is changed. For instance, a line of code will be changed 50 times, and your hits of code will be 50. It's a good metric because it allows you to understand how actively your project is being developed. And there are lots of other things such as code bit, repo size, and code bit is for evaluating your repository. It says, good job, you get an A, and this is the startup that free of charge provides these metrics to GitHub. This is a better feature. Certification and provenance. In other words, you can prove to the end user that your build or your image has been specially certified, and someone uses a different name, not certification, but anyway, it confirms that you were the one who created the build in a proper way. That just goes to show you that GitHub is going to the cybersec with the CodeQL, with advisory databases, logic, and so on and so forth. So everything boils down to cybersec. And we closed the loop. We're hit by CI. We develop ET, upload it into the hosting, do releases, we pack it, users download that, add it to their projects, and everyone is happy. So we finally managed to get in touch with our user, and I'm happy to see that. But actually, even more tools are available to you. You can do the snake, make a smart snake, make a Tetris, and you can call it DevTools. You can link it to CI so that your boss is happy, but please don't do that. And all these tools that we added to GitHub is something that we will cover at the next Positive Hack Days Fest, unless, of course, you are disappointed with this talk and this entire track. And I'll see you next time, and I'll be happy to share with you information on additional tools. Thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you for your patience. By the way, you can give a round of applause if you want to. And these are the two QR codes for subscribing me to my GitHub page. I try to actively write my code whenever I have free time. And the second QR code is for leaving the feedback. Thank you. Well, don't forget about the feedback. Hits of code is going to the dark side. You know. I guess you understand who the author is, right? I'm not going to name this person. Well, we don't do this because otherwise we will be punished. You asked about the Vim who is using, and Peter is asking, how do you leave Vim? I believe that question deserves a prize. Peter, please raise your hand if you already received the T-shirt. He did, so we're not going to name him a winner. Another question from Peter. have you ever thought about this security of all these plugins in terms of leaking the code? Well, of course, yes. This is the main challenge. The logins that you add in IDE. Large enterprises work in close connection with the IDE developers so that they have air-gapped premises. Well, actually, there is a person who comes into a bank. He sits in front of his laptop, and all he sees is a snake inside an IDE, and this is it. And this entire container is totally air-gapped from the outside world. So this container is totally air-gapped, and this person works within his container with an assistant who goes to the internet, who goes online on a limited basis. Well, I was talking about Wall Street banks rather than our IT banks. They punish everyone for going online. Well, in addition to development, and you need to register codes.
Также в open source бывают сливы данных.
Open source leaks data of company. Are there any tools to control?
Значит, по поводу сливов. Значит, действительно, я прям забыл упомянуть на слайде тул, которыми не все пользуются. Это отдельные боты. Прям есть куча стартапов, которые...
There are lots of startups who agree with cloud providers for you not to provide your own password. They index GitHub in its entirety. They get pull requests, and as soon as you leak a Huawei cloud password or Amazon cloud password, they email to you and tell you, "You're a fool. You leaked your own password. You leaked your own code. Don't do this ever again." And there are services like that. As for personal data leakage, the answer is no. No one does that, and it's done manually, and it's administered by people, and and there was another question. It was part of the overall question, right? So, as far as tests and the documentation are concerned,
Hype с LLM и с вот этим.
Before the LLM hype appeared, they were UT-bot tests. It was done by a colleague of mine from Huawei. It's an open source technology that allows symbolic execution to generate tests for your code.
Такое тоже есть.
Well, it is available, and for LLMs, it's not a problem. Well, let's move on. Is there an open source live in GitLab, unless similar to what you mentioned in your presentation? The answer is no. Everything is bad in GitLab, and I do recall that Huawei Harmony OS moved from GitLab to Kitty because to GitHub, because Gitty is more community-driven than the goddamned GitLab. I hate it. Agreed. Next question. Most of the cool utilities, are they for GitHub only, or can you link them to other platforms? Well, for instance, I told you about Sarifa format, and if you integrate your static analyzers with GitHub, and someone in GitLab 3 years later raised an issue after it was 3 years after it was done on GitHub.
По поводу штуки для аттестации.
As for certificates, Durov recently announced reproducible build for Telegram. Is there a plugin for that?
Я, кстати, не знаю.
Well, I don't know whether there is a plugin, but it sounds great. GitHub embraced a different approach, right? And one other question: you talked about GitHub, but what about Russia? What's available in Russia? Gitverse, Gitfreak, Gitty, the Russian version of Gitty, and Yandex will probably enter this market soon. Well, all of them don't work really well, but we hope that the situation will improve. Right, and the very last question. What's your take on writing rules through the interactive GUI CPG rather than pure QSL? Well, this is my dream. I want it to happen, and there are projects that already do that. Jorn or Yorn does that, and you can link to Neo4j. This is the graph database, and you can link it to your journal engine, upload your code, and send your requests there. And in the interactive graph, you can move the nodes around to discover bugs in your code. So it's low-code, no-code system. It has been invented. It was invented a long time ago. We are out of time, so we need to wrap this up. Right. One question from the floor. Let me bring the mic to you. Hold on a second.
Ай-яй-яй.
Thank you for the presentation. I have a comment rather than a question. There was a similar question in the chat, and I understand we are out of time. But as far as documentation is concerned, you mentioned that we need to reach the end user, but you didn't have a single slide about documentation. But it's one of the pain points of the open source. There is no documentation, and sometimes you have to go into the code and the scripts to understand how you can build it locally. But I am in no position to explain to you. There is a markdown in GitHub. There's med docs. Read the docs. You can use Jekyll to build a static site. Someone might criticize me, but the static build is good because you won't have poke banners. All you're gonna get is a clean, simple, and elegant design. And even for your minimal project, you can do one-page landing that would describe what's needed for installation, run, and operation. Thank you for a great comment. Moreover, the presentation with the Maslow pyramid included a huge chapter on that. By the way, I did not mention generation of releases. By pressing a single release button from the CI, GitHub generates release nodes based on the commitments that you have undertaken. I was really short of time, but so it is available there. And one other thing about releases. Some people in some projects use night builds, and that goes back to the well-developed infrastructure of GitHub. The nightly builds, nightly.builds is a great project that you should have mentioned, because sometimes it's difficult to get the latest master build out of tests by using the DNA link, and it just generates you a hyperlink to the most recent test release. Thank you so much. I like that comment. I oftentimes use night builds, and they lead to burnout. Now I want to give the T-shirt to this person. Right. He already received a T-shirt. So, okay, please select the winner. There was a question about a Vim, but this guy already received the T-shirt. Leaks. Yeah, let's give the shirt to this guy. Hold on a second. He also got a T-shirt before. I guess we handed out to all the possible winners the T-shirts before. Let's give Pavel the T-shirt for being